Hello my friends, today we are in Lightroom Classic and we will edit this image. We will take it from this to this. Again, this is what we start with. This is what we will end up with. And all these edits will be done into Lightroom. No plugins, no Photoshop, no other apps, just Lightroom Classic, before and after. So let's go reset this image and we'll start from the very beginning. The very first thing I would like to do is to use the crop tool and use this angle tool over here to make sure my horizon is straight. It looks pretty straight, but let's make sure of that. So there you go, that looks pretty straight. We are good there. The next thing I would like to do is my white balance is completely off, so I do want to warm it up and make it something a little bit more of what it really was. So I'm gonna go to, let's see, something like that looks good, somewhere around there. We'll go with that, and then maybe take some of this magenta off. We'll go adding a little bit of green. I think that will look good. -5, we'll leave with that. So far this our image is, this is before and after, and we just cropped and did a little bit of white balance work. The image is a little bit underexposed, so we will increase exposure a little bit, maybe something like that, and we're also going to add some contrast. So we'll go pretty heavy on the contrast, maybe 37. I would like to take the highlights down a little bit, so we'll go with that maybe around -40, 45, 44, something around there. And I would like to open up the shadows more into this so we can see these trees a little bit. So for that, I will go pretty aggressive, maybe open it all the way to like 81. The whites, I would like to increase them a little bit. We'll go to +40, 42, something like that. And then bring down the blacks to create a little bit of contrast. Not too much. I don't want to darken those trees too much. I still want to see some details in the tree, so maybe -31. So far, let's see, this is our image before and after. Before and after, we are going on a good direction. I will add some texture, not too much, maybe +20 or so. Let's see, +19, we'll go with that. And maybe even a little bit of clarity, something like +14, that should be plenty. Vibrance, I will add something like +30, and that looks good to me. Our image so far, this is what we started with, this is where we ended up so far, and that we are going in the right direction. Things are looking good. The next panel I like to work with is the calibration panel. The calibration panel, especially I want to work with the blue primary, and I will work with the saturation slider. I will increase the saturation slider, and you see if I move it all the way to the right, to increase saturation, it will increase the saturation on blues, but will also bring out the pinks and the greens and all the other colors. I will reset it, and you see when I move it to 100, it just brings everything to life and adds some color. So I'll go maybe not all the way to 100, but maybe around 67, 70. But now, of course, my blues are too saturated, so I have to go into the HSL and take down the blue saturation, maybe around -13, and that looks great. Let's see our image so far. This is our before and this is after, before and after. Things are looking good. Next, I do want to add some warm tones into the highlights to bring back some of that, sunset colors that I did see when I was there. This is the color grading panel, and you can see you have a few dials here on the top, a few buttons. This is your highlights, this is your midtones, and this is your shadows. Today we will only work with the highlights because that's the part I want to bring in some warm tones. Your warm tones will live somewhere in the mid-30s in the hue, so I will move my hue slider somewhere like 34, and that's where in the oranges now. And for saturation, let's see what it would look good. I'll move it maybe to 71, and that made a big difference. Look at the image before the color grading. This is the before, this is the after, before and after. That warm tone really brought our image to life. Now, I would like to work more with these warm tones and put a sun flare here, or like, bring more of this warm light that was coming from the sunset that was happening here somewhere on the left side. To do that, first thing I want to do is zoom out quite a bit, so I'll go to maybe like 12.5%, and then I'll go into masking and I will take a radial gradient. With this radial gradient, I will start off the frame over here on the left and drag a gradient that looks something like this. I will angle it, and let's see, I want this light, this warm light, to come from over here where the sun is and hit the front of this boat just the way the natural light was coming on that day. So let's see, something like that looks very nice. Now I need to increase the exposure on this because the light, it was brighter, so maybe like plus 0.4. That looks good. And then also I want to use the dehaze, but I don't want to add dehaze, I want to take away dehaze. And if I go to -100, you see it creates this atmosphere, and that's what I want, but obviously not that much. I don't want it to be at 100. I'll go to maybe -10. And that it gives that nice haze, but it's too white. We need to add a lot of warmth into it. To add warmth, we would go into the temperature, and let's see, we'll add a lot of yellow, something 57, that looks good, and maybe even some magenta, and maybe 17, that also looks great. And now if we want to, adjust our gradient, we can do so, and we can make it the way we want it to look. That is a pretty good size. I'm gonna go with something like that, and that looks pretty natural. Let's go back to fit to screen, and let's see, this is without our gradient, and this is with, and that just adds so much of a nicer touch. We can really see the light coming from the sunset, and this is our before, this is the after gradient, and I like that. Now let's see our image all together. We started with this image and we ended up with this image. This is the before and this is the after, and I think we really improved it by a lot, and I like the way it ended up. Now one last thing I want to do is this image. It's a little bit too bright maybe overall, so I want to go into my tone curve and just bring down the midtones just a little bit, and that will just create a little bit of a better mood in my opinion. This is before the tone curve, and this is the after. This is the before and this is the after. I hope you learned something new in this tutorial and this was useful to you. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Skylar Ewing, and I'll see you in my next video.